All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. We have a very special episode for you guys today. We are wrapping up with some talk about the Lions win over the Browns on Sunday. We have a terrific interview with Lions legend Lomas Brown, and then we're going to preview this weekend's game against the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium. But before we get to all that, I'm Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Richard Silva. Richard, how goes it?
It goes well. Talked to Liam McNeil today, which we'll get into a little bit later, but he was talking about his rehab and just how in good spirits he was the whole time. So I was like, you know what? Yeah. Why aren't we all in good spirits?
That's right. No bad days. We have to start this with an apology because last episode, the post-game episode, we did not have our mics running properly. And I was very much excited to listen to the episode. I don't actually listen to the full episode, but I was interested in, checking out the sound quality with the new microphones that you guys have been hearing about. And I was like, oh, I think something happened with the microphone. And it dawned on me after the fact that there was one last step that I needed to complete that I did not complete. So this falls squarely on my shoulders. Unfortunately, that's the worst part about it. I have nobody to blame but myself. But we should be good to go now. And this is an in-person recording. Rich and I previously have been audio recording, so hopefully the banter gets a little more bantery. The conversations are a little bit more steamy. Things like that. So just had to issue a quick apology on that. And I think going forward, most of our podcasts are going to be recording in person instead of virtually, which I think makes a big difference. And hopefully you guys will just continue to see this show getting better and better as the weeks go on.
Yeah, listen, the team didn't turn on Dan Campbell after week 2 last year, where he took accountability for that halftime against the Bucs debacle. They ended up costing themselves 3 points. The team didn't turn on Dan, so I'm not turning on you.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, we're here in the, I want to whisper when I say this, the Reisman recording room, the Jeremy Reisman recording room. Unfortunately, still named after Jeremy after the past however many years it's been, 2-3 years. I really want that crown. I really want this to be the Silva recording room. We'll see maybe next year.
Yeah. Rich's biggest fantasy at work is winning the media combine. He's the youngest person who works here, by the way. And he thinks that means has always been the most athletic person out of anybody. Just completely failing to acknowledge that his spry young body would be able to outperform against 30 and 40-year-olds. That's all Richard wants in life. Richard actually has a race tomorrow against one of the Lions PR interns, Savannah. And he's been fantasizing about crossing that finish line before her. She ran track in college, and so it's a legitimate test for old Richie Rich.
I don't want to do it. They egged PR on to set it up, and I just can't walk away from the challenge. But I think we should get into the lines.
All right, we should get into the lines. We will start by looking a little bit at last week's game against the Browns. Honestly, not going to spend as much time on it as we might, like last week's win over the Ravens, just because that win meant so much more. I think there were a lot of things that we were able to pull from it, and I think that necessarily wasn't the case in Sunday's win against just a bad team, just kind of machine-like destruction of one of the league's bottom dwellers. So not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but Rich did do a great film review. It's up at DetroitNews.com, just kind of looking at what the Lions' run defense did against Cleveland and why they've been successful really all season.
I think mostly what I took from that game is what Dan Campbell has been talking, the whole chameleon thing about, okay, yeah, they won another way. You got a Khalif Raymond punt return touchdown. The defense played really well outside of the first drive, and that's it. I don't know how much time we could or really should spend on that. But to talk about the run defense and what I learned in the film review, I think to me the biggest thing was I feel like I would have to look at the numbers. I feel like they're playing more cover 1 this year than they were last year. And again, don't quote me on that because I haven't looked at the numbers, and maybe I should have. But it really feels like Branch is walked up in the box a lot this year. And I say all that to say, in this game, they were never outmanned in the box on a run play. There was 23 run plays that I looked at. I took out Flacco's 3, and then Harold Fannin Jr. had a rush play. I got rid of that. So it was 21 rushes from Quinshon Judkins and then 1 apiece from each of the Browns' backup running backs. So I looked at those. Never once were they outmanned in the box, which is typical. Usually it's a good box for the offense if it's hat on a hat. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But more impressive to me was, I think it was 8 out of the 23 rushes, so more than a third, just over a third, the Lions actually had an advantage, a numbers advantage in the box. And that goes back to what Kelvin Shepard was talking about, these corners, the fact that they're out on these islands all the time. And that's because Brian Branch is walked up in the box and is up there near the line of scrimmage. And I think the Lions can do that, one, because of the corners that they have, and then two, but almost more importantly, in my opinion, is Kirby Joseph's ability to be like the best middle field safety currently in the NFL. There's a reason he leads the league in picks since he came into the NFL. What was that, in 2022? I think he's got 19 since. I actually heard him in the locker room messing with St. Brown. He said that he has better hands than St. Brown. And St. Brown got asked about it, and then St. Brown was like, yeah, well, I mean, he just keeps getting all these interceptions dropped in his lap, which is like this last one was. But because it almost, you hear all the time, like the marriage between the pass rush and the coverage and the run defense. But I think you really see that in the personnel where Kirby can survive being the single high safety. The corners can survive being in man. Branch can survive being up in the box. And then you have the run defenders that you have. You have a DJ Reader. You have a Tyleik Williams. All that combined, all put together and shaken up, you get a really good run defense. And that's what it was against Cleveland. I think it was with Judkins 82 yards on 21 attempts, which is fine. It's a fine outing. I think it's like 3-point-something yards a carry. But he had a success rate of 38.1%, which was, if I'm not mistaken, 23rd out of 35 qualified running backs. And success rate is, it's a very, I guess, simple way of putting things. But on first down, do you gain 40% of the yards to gain or not? Do you gain usually first and 10, do you gain 4 or more yards? If so, that's a success. If not, it's not a success. It's 60% on second down, and it's 100%. Do you move the chains on third or fourth down? Judkins had, like I said, 38.1% success rate, 23rd of 35. For reference, Jahmyr Gibbs was 8th in the league in week 4 with a 53.3% success rate. So I thought it was just another really strong effort from the run game. I mentioned the numbers advantage they had in the box. DJ Reader and Tyleik Williams have been really impressive since the beginning of this year. And I didn't touch on it in the film review, but Tyleik Williams is doing this thing when he gets double teamed. And you let me know if you've ever seen it before, because I know it's a thing. Like, I had never seen it before, so I Googled it, and like I saw like a video of like Florida practices from like the early 2000s, them teaching their defensive tackles it. But it's when they get hit with a double team, dropping to one knee on the side of where the second offensive lineman is hitting you. And it's almost, from my understanding of the strategy, it's like kind of conceding in a way that you're not going to make the play, but also saying like, you're not moving me off this spot, because dropping to a knee, like, you get super low. Like, it's hard to
low man wins.
Yeah, low man wins. You get that leverage. He's done that a lot when he's gotten double teamed, and it's almost like just form a wall. Like, you're not moving me here. The run is going to have to go to not this guy. So he's been really good with that. DJ Reader's been awesome, obviously. And then the last thing I touched on was just the secondary, and they lose Terrion when he's playing in run support. By the way, he injures himself tackling Judkins. Reed was great. For Terrion specifically, there was one rep where the very first drive, Cleveland's first drive, first play, they have one play, and it's a 10-yard run by Judkins. The very first play of the second drive it appeared to me the same exact play, just flipped. Same personnel, same formation, same play, just flipped to the other side. And Terrion read it like a book, tackled, I think, with Barnes for no gain, Judkins. I know that he's been struggling and as a coverage player, and there's no getting around that. He absolutely has. There's a reason why they're putting Amik Robertson on the field more, even before these latest injuries. But I think in run support, we've talked about it before, he really is sticking out there that you can't question the want to. You know what I mean with him or DJ Reed.
Yeah, they've both been excellent. I think, one thing you didn't hit on here, I know you touched on in the film review, was the linebackers. And I think that has kind of been a revelation over the last couple weeks or at the start of the season. We knew the Lions starting linebackers were good, right? But then you see Zach Cunningham making that play against Baltimore on the goal line last week. And then you see Trevor Nowaski, he ends up doing a good job spying Lamar Jackson. Cunningham gets hurt. They throw Nowaski out there. He plays 13 snaps last week, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
And I really think that you're starting to see the depth show up with a lot of these units. Tyler Lacey had a good game on Sunday. Maybe not as much in the run game, but definitely in the pass game. They were kicking him out to the edge, doing a whole bunch of stuff. So I think what we're seeing from this Lions defense is they just keep becoming more and more multiple. They can do so many different things. Kind of tapped into what you were saying about the chameleon. I think for the longest time that really only applied to the offensive side of the ball. They would have liked for it to apply to both sides of the ball, but the defense just hasn't been there. For the first couple of years of Dan Campbell's tenure here. It is fully there now, and Kelvin Shepherd has these guys absolutely humming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I could try to pull up this chart that I saw earlier. Basically, they were just talking about like DVOA and like EPA per play and all that stuff. And the Lions it's one of those charts on Twitter.
What are these stats?
What
are these stats?
Estimated points added and stuff like that. I'm gonna be honest.
What's DVOA?
Like defensive value or something, or what? I don't know.
Just for the people at home.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't love I don't love those stats. Like I struggle to like. I'm just be real. Understand like EPA. Me and Ben Raven always make a joke because he's on the same page as me. MLabs Ben Raven. We're like estimated points added. Points get added when that ball goes over the goal line. Jahmyr Gibbs added 6 points on that play right there. But anyway, it was this advanced stat chart, and they were showing all the teams in the league, and the Lions were in the quadrant of like consistent defense and limits explosive plays, like at the same time, like doing a bit of both. So yeah, I think through the first 4 weeks of Kelvin Shepherd, it has been particularly impressive.
Yeah, I think DVOA is kind of like if you know the WAR statistic in baseball, kind of applies that to the whole team, and it's weighted based on opponents and things like that. Just for the people at home who maybe this is their first time hearing of it. But yeah, they've been unbelievable. Did you have anything else on that front?
No,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
I was just. So yeah, that was that game. While just a couple hours after we recorded our podcast. Moving on a little bit. Do you have anything else on that game that you want to touch on? Just a couple hours after we finished recording our podcast, the post-game podcast, the Green Bay Packers fell out of first place with one of the wildest Sunday Night Football games you'll ever see. Ended in a 40-40 tie because the Packers straight up blew it on the last drive of overtime. And now we are 3 weeks out from, or I guess we're 3.5 weeks at the time of recording from the Lions' disastrous Week 1 loss at Green Bay. And I think not only were the big picture concerns coming out of that, but the concern about, how is this team going to match the Packers' win pace? And they came out on Thursday Night Football in Week 2. They crushed the Commanders, another contender. But these last 2 weeks, they just have not looked very good at all. And now the Lions are not only in first place, the Lions also now hold the tiebreaker over the Packers if they finish with the same amount of wins. So
losses.
Wins.
Because if I'm 9-8 and you're 9-7-1, you have the better record.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So
if they have the same number of losses.
Yeah.
Wow, look at us. Thanks for the correction there. So they have the tiebreaker there on that front. And then just like the Packers blew 2 winnable games, and in a division where every game is going to mean everything, they now have losses on their record against the Browns and against the Cowboys, who are 2 teams that, one, the Lions have already beat, and the Cowboys, I do expect them to beat later on this year. So I think that is kind of we've slowly seen this over the last couple of weeks. Packers, shocking upset, they lose to the Browns. Maybe this defense isn't as good as we thought. I think the Cowboys' offense is pretty good, but it just looked really, really bad. No CeeDee Lamb in that game, and away we go. The Lions have sole possession of first place, and I don't really know what this Packers team is going to look like when they come back from the bye week.
I will say that, they're a blocked kick away, and then they had the whole early in the game, the blocked PAT return for 2 points, away from beating those teams. But to have that little margin of error, particularly against the Browns team, and then also against the Cowboys team, I think for as much as you can say, and like how I was just bringing up, they're a couple plays away from being 4-0. The fact that you needed those couple plays against a team like the Browns is, I think, alarming, whereas the Lions won by whatever it was, 24 points, probably playing like a B-plus game overall. Not a Packers podcast, but to talk about that ending real quick. They get a first down at the 15 with 43 seconds left.
Yeah.
And only 1 ball goes into the end zone, I believe. They throw a screen right after that gets tackled. I think timeout, and then another play, and they're just taking their time. and they're lucky that they even that they tied. Like they were 1 second away from a loss. I just can't believe, like I said, 15 yards out, about 43 seconds. I understand, Stan, you're scared of Brandon Aubrey, but shoot, man, like put 3 balls in the end zone. Like, yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this actually does kind of go back to the Cleveland, is watching that back. You noticed, we've been talking about this stat. Oh, Lions have now gone 3 straight games without a sack. Never been done before in franchise history. But what I think has gone underappreciated throughout all this, because obviously the bounce back of the offensive line has been such a big storyline around here. I think one of the things that's kind of gone under the radar a little bit is Jared Goff's pocket presence, his pocket mobility. I don't know, I can't say for sure that it has absolutely gotten better this year, but I think watching that Browns game, it kind of hit me like how good he is, at least compared to what the perception is of him out there. I think there are a lot of people who hold on to the perception that he had in his first 2 years, where there weren't a lot of receivers out there who could catch passes, or there weren't, the best looking offense at times. And he really is just turning it around so crazily in every area, but especially I think the mobility has been really, really impressive. And I thought there were several occasions watching that game back where I felt like, wow, he is the reason that there was not a sack on that play. The offensive lineman did enough to allow him to go to work. But, there was one specific play that I posted on Twitter where Panay gets beat on the edge by Myles Garrett, pretty cleanly. And he has a nice little nudge or whatever you want to call it at the end of the block to kind of make sure that, Garrett can't grab Goff, but Jared just dipped under it and rolled out to the open field. Myles Garrett's still breathing down his neck, but I think he knows when that pressure is coming, and he's patient, even though this defensive player of the year, just surefire Hall of Famer, is right behind him. And he just delivers like a 20-something yard strike to St. Brown. I think it was 25 yards. So I thought that was super impressive. And he even talked about it today. It's something he's worked on. But in addition to that, it's something that the Lions offensive line being good helps him with. He said, when you're not getting pressured a lot, you do feel when you are getting pressure. It's not like one of those things where there's a lot of quarterbacks out there who don't have good offensive lines. The second they get the ball, it's like they're looking to get it out and almost kind of panicking because they know it's inevitable that somebody's going to get there. Whereas Goff, he's able to be comfortable. He's able to feel those sensations maybe a little bit more clear than some other quarterbacks. And he's able to act on what he's seeing and feeling as opposed to just crumbling in that moment.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, because that's the second time I've heard him talk about that. The fact that, and I think he mentioned it sometime last year, that the quality of the offensive line, when a guy does get beat, it's very easy to spot, where it's like, because it looks so different. Like he's like, okay, yep, that guy, pressure coming right there. Versus, playing behind a bad offensive line, it all looks bad across the board. And you're like, I don't know what's really bad, what's not really bad. So yes, I think that's the biggest thing that's helping him. And also, you remember, what was it, week 9 last year, I think, against the Titans, where he tweaked his ankle, and it got highlighted on the Netflix series where he was kind of dealing with that for the rest of the season. Barring something we aren't aware of, I think he's 100% healthy right now. So that, or as 100% healthy as you could be entering week 5 of the NFL season. So I think that's also part of it, where he's probably moving as good as he's moved in the past maybe year or so.
Can I rant about something?
You can.
That's the last thing we got to get to before we get to some injury news. We'll get to Lomas in a second. The Bears ran Stumblebum on Sunday against the Raiders. Ben Johnson, new head coach, former Lions offensive coordinator. Maybe you've heard of him.
Who?
His iconic play was a fake fumble on play action to Jahmyr Gibbs on a pass that went to Sam Laporta against the Bears for a touchdown. That was the play. He's had a lot of great plays in his time as Lions offensive coordinator, but that one being against the team that he would end up coaching, and the mythology that was developed around this play at Soldier Field last season has been massive. It is. I'm struggling to think of like a metaphor for it, but like it is his.
It was his Mona Lisa.
It was his Mona Lisa. Yeah. He pulled it out the other day. Game 4 was his new stint. 1-2 in the standings. Second quarter, owned 30-something yard line, and it failed. You cannot run Stumblebum, the iconic play from your previous stop, down 7 in the first half. You have to. That is a play that you, not a Bears podcast, that is a play that you save for like the ultimate slam dunk in somebody's face moment, and they used it to just like get things going in the second quarter. And I was thoroughly disappointed with the judgment on the decision to call that. I'm sure Lions fans were thrilled because it didn't work, but I just had to get that off my chest. I thought it was absolutely abysmal decision making.
I thought what was interesting to me on that play, and I don't know like if this is on Caleb or not. I don't know if he has this freedom in the offense right now, but when they run it, the Bears linebackers, both of their linebackers in the middle of the field are blitzing, and you do that. We saw it last year to manipulate the linebackers in coverage. Like if the linebackers are blitzing already and they see the ball on the ground, they're just going to keep going. Like you know what I mean? That's not change. It's not deviating their path. So I don't know if that was maybe one, a bad play call, or two, on Caleb, because maybe Caleb should have identified that those linebackers were coming and checked out of the play. I mean, you heard
still a bad play call for all the reasons I just mentioned.
For the lore, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they say last year that they called it and then Goff checked out of it and then they called it again? I'm 99% sure that's what happened. So yeah, again, I don't know if Caleb has that freedom in the offense right now to check in and out of plays. I can almost guarantee you he doesn't have the freedom that Goff has, just being year 5 versus year 2 into it. But yeah, that was interesting to me as well, part of that play.
Yeah, just had to get that off my chest. Some Bears fan tweeted me, was like, Mr. Johnson can do whatever he wants. And I'm not against him using the play. Like, I think he should use it. But that's like a statement. You run that when you're looking to say, yeah, the Bears are here.
Sure.
I've arrived.
Sure.
Caleb's arrived.
Sure.
Use it. Honestly, if I were him, I probably would have waited till a game against the Lions that was semi in hand, or maybe you're up 7 late in the second half or something like that, and then you pull it out, and then it's like, remember me? It could have been a lot more impactful. Instead, you only got one chance to make a first impression on the stumble bomb in your new job.
Even if let's say they're up like 14 on the second half against the Lions and it doesn't work, it's still kind of funny. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. We tried it. Yeah. Instead of being like, oh man, 2nd and 8,
Right. Whatever it was. Yeah.
All right, let's get in some injury transaction news. The big news of the day, kind of 2 items leading the way here. Aleem McNeil returns to practice, a defensive tackle. He got a big extension midway through last season. I think it was October of last year. So almost a full year ago. He ends up going out for the season with a knee injury in September, works his way back. December. Thank you, Richard. He ends up working his way back. It kind of sounded like, by the way, that Dan Campbell made it sound like he feels like he's been ready for a while, but just being smart with the injury, knowing what they're playing for this season, and the fact that you'd rather have him at the back half of the season than the front half of the season. I think they were, waiting maybe a little bit longer than McNeil would have liked. But either way, this is one of the most important players that they could possibly be getting back right now. Like, I'm trying to think of where he ranks in the list of importance, and the Lions have so many good players that it's actually kind of hard to do that. Yeah. But outside of Hutchinson, probably the most important pass rusher that they have.
Yeah, I would say so. I remember we were some episode in the summer, we were talking about how many like market resetting caliber players the Lions have, and I think we settled on like 9. Wherever you want to put him, he's in that top 9. I think he's like a top 10 player on this team, which is, it's significant.
And he didn't reset the market, but he got somewhere closer. I think he was top 5 when he got his new money. And guys like Chris Jones and Matabuike from Baltimore, they are going to naturally be at the top of that list. But he got paid like one of the best defensive tackles in football, and he is one of the best defensive tackles in football. Sometimes that position, things can kind of fly out of the radar a little bit, but no timetable for his return in terms of date that they're targeting, but I would imagine that they're trying to get him back for Week 7 Monday Night Football against the Buccaneers, or otherwise why start the acclimation window now, because you would just have the full bye week to get him ready and keep that roster spot open. So I thought that was interesting that they did it right now. I think that probably bodes well for him getting back before the bye week.
Yeah, I would agree. He talked about what you said earlier, kind of like mentally, I've been ready to go. But he said, I think it might have been in response to your question, he likened his recovery to baking a cake. And he was like, there's different layers, there's different things. You gotta put it in and then wait, let it cook. So I think he was saying, like mentally that layer was done. The base layer was done. Yeah. Physically, though, that needed to stay in the oven for a little bit, and it did, and now he's ready.
It's a little soupy.
Yeah, a little soupy. Yeah.
The other big item of the day, DJ Reed, cornerback, going to IR. However, it is not nearly as bad of a situation as it looked like it was when he hit the ground on Sunday against Cleveland. Sounds like he could be back relatively soon after these 4 games. And it is 4 games. It's not 4 weeks. Some people have been asking me that on Twitter. The bye week does not count as a game having passed. So he will, I believe, he will be eligible to return after the Vikings game. Yeah, so they play the Vikings in week 9. He'll be eligible to return in week 10. And that's unbelievable news. Well, it remains to be seen whether he'll be able to return as soon as possible. But just the fact that they seem to not be all that worried about it, I think is really big.
Yeah, agreed, because it didn't look great when it happened. It is just crazy, though. Like, you talk about, like, oh, yeah, he'll be back relatively soon, week 10. Like, geez, week 10. Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, that's crazy. Lions season, 23.5% over. Don't take it for granted, folks. Feels like a long season, but it's not. A couple more things we got for you here. Lions signed safety Lauren Strickland and Ty Summers to the active roster from the practice squad. Ty Summers is a linebacker. And they signed cornerback Trey Flowers and cornerback Nick Whiteside to the practice squad. Trey Flowers, longtime vet, prototypical Seattle cornerback. Yeah. You and I saw him out at practice today, and I was like, oh, they signed a new ex-receiver. He's built like a freak.
Dude, when we walked out there, I literally said, who is 26?
Yeah.
He hadn't been added to the roster yet. But yeah, like you said, literally looks like Tim Patrick playing corner. Like, that guy is enormous, which is, long man coverage corner, or not man coverage per se, but just long corner like the Seahawks. Totally fits and makes sense why he was, 2018? I think he got drafted by them.
Yeah. And then they also added Nick Whiteside to the practice squad. Whiteside, one of the greatest stories from this year's training camp, I thought. Local kid, ends up really having a good shot to make the roster. Unfortunately for him, I think his last 2 games were probably a little bit more downhill than he would have liked, and just wasn't flashing as much in practice. But just with the way that things are shaking out here, the ability to hang around and continue making a positive impression is a good thing. And, he'll have the chance to catch the eye of the coaching staff.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, right? Like, I mean, Dan Campbell said at minimum, whoever they add is going to help in practice. But if you make noise in practice, there's no reason to think sometime over these next 5 weeks, 4 games, you can't get a practice squad elevation and get a shot.
Right. Absolutely. Quick Lions practice report from Wednesday. These 6 guys were not practicing today. Linebacker Zach Cunningham, he's got a hamstring. Offensive tackle Taylor Decker, still dealing with that shoulder injury that's kept him out of practice the last 4 weeks. Cornerback Khalil Dorsey, he is a new addition to the injury report with he's in concussion protocol.
And that's significant this week, especially.
Absolutely. Safety Kirby Joseph, out with the knee injury that's been plaguing him since training camp. Cornerback DJ Reed, we just mentioned, was not out there today. And then running back Sione Vaki, also not out there. He's got a groin injury that he suffered against Baltimore. Limited on the day. And this is probably I wouldn't say the best news of the day, because it might be the best news of the day because we knew Aleem was coming back. But Taron Arnold was practicing today. So as bad as the Bengals are, we're going to really give you all the details on how much they stink coming up in a second. But as bad as the Bengals are, they have 2 world-class receivers over there. And it's not good if your corners aren't out there, even if the guy getting on the ball hasn't been all that great.
Yeah, I think Deshae Townsend, the DB's coach, the corners coach, was talking today. And somebody said, hey, like, there was a bunch of questions asked, and they were like, hey, we're not going to let you get out of here without asking about Jamar and T. Higgins. And he was like, whew. He was like, yeah, it's probably the best tandem. Not probably. I think comfortably the best tandem in the NFL.
All right. We are going to get to our interview with Lomas Brown. Lomas was, grateful enough to share 30 minutes with us. So we had a great conversation about his career, about current Lions. He's obviously the color analyst for WJR, the Lions flagship radio station. And he also hosts the Sports Wrap on Monday through Friday, 7 to 6 p.m. on WJR with Anthony Bellino. And he also has a new series that he's starting up. It's called Breaking Bread for a Cause. I believe you can find it if you search the Schoolcraft College YouTube. It's a new series that he's working on where he's kind of having dinner with Lions legends and other pro athletes who, just trying to get them to open up. When you're breaking bread, you're a little bit more free. So that's something to look forward to as well. Before we get to that, a word from our sponsor.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top Volume 4 dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service, so you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, joining us now is a very special guest. He is a 7-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion, the color analyst alongside Dan Miller on the Lions Radio Network, and he hosts the Sports Wrap on Monday through Friday, 7 to 6 p.m. on WJR 760 AM radio with Anthony Bellino. He is the great, the one, the only Lomas Brown. Lomas, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's really exciting to have you on. Now, the Lions within the last couple of weeks have made a big push for your Hall of Fame candidacy. It was not too long ago that you were inducted into part of the Lions as well. What has this been like for you as the team tries to get you into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It really has been. I want to thank the Lions and that whole organization for this push. It's been great. Humbling, just to even be nominated with the list of guys that I'm nominated with. It's a humbling experience and, something I don't take for granted. So I'm so thankful that the Lions have really got behind me and really pushed to try to get me into Canton. And it's great. And we're winning games. So it's been good. It's been a good year so far.
Lomas, it's good to see you. I wanted to ask, and maybe this is a little bit of an obvious question, but in your own words, what would a Hall of Fame nod or a push for the Hall of Fame mean for you? Why is it important for you? And if you have to explain your candidacy, maybe in the bullet points, your best bullet points, how would you describe it?
Yeah, again, I think, and people say I'm biased, but I know I blocked for the greatest running back to play in this game in Barry Sanders. And just to be part, the block for him for 7 of his 10 years he was here, it was just a great experience. I know what Barry did for our organization, because before he got there in 1989, we were probably an afterthought. But once we got Barry, it really brought a lot of attention to the team. And it brought a lot of attention to me. So to be able to say I blocked for one of the greatest and to be able to get into the Hall of Fame, I just think it would represent the Lions in a great way. It's not many. That's the crazy thing about being an offensive lineman. If you think about it, Emmitt Smith, he only has one guy off that great line in the Hall of Fame. That's the late, great Larry Allen. You think about the Hogs, how great of a line that was, and they only got, I think, one member in there off that line. You think about some of the great offensive lines that have played in this game, and it's not a lot of representatives from those lines. So to be the first, hopefully, to go in blocking for Barry Sanders, that would just be an all-time honor for me. It really would be.
Why do you think that offensive line is a little bit underrepresented in the Hall of Fame?
I think, one, we don't have stats other than, the games we played in and different things like that. I think that kind of skews it a little bit. And, people don't realize they need us until they need us. You talk to Patrick Mahomes, you seen that Super Bowl? He could have used some offensive linemen. So, I think once, when people really look and say, oh, man, we really need these guys. They're a significant part of this game. And these are the guys that kind of keep that, well, I like to say that motor running. We're kind of like the faceless five. What we do is to help everybody else look good. And I don't mind that. That's how I've been all my life playing this position. So I think it's just the nature of the position. And that's why you probably don't see a lot of guys represented in there.
By the way, I was just remembered, we might have some beef to settle here between you two guys because Lomas, the Florida grad, remember the Great Wall of Florida, and then we got Rich. I don't think he amounted to as much at South Florida as you did at Florida,
You
but
know what?
do we need to settle anything here?
Well, the great thing, he didn't rub it in too bad after they beat us. So we're still on good terms. He didn't rub it in, and as you can see, we're still struggling at Florida. It just hadn't been good. It just hadn't been good in Gainesville as of lately.
It was when we were up there in Wisconsin on that Saturday, and we were at the same place but sitting at separate tables. And
Yeah.
me and Ben Raven from MLive come over excited, and it's like, oh, USF beat Florida, forgetting that you were there, and you were like, yeah I know.
I know, that was funny too. And I didn't find out. Remember, you delivered the news to me because I didn't know up until then that we had lost to South Florida. So yeah, you were gracious in winning.
I tried my best.
We have a couple other questions about your Lions career, but I'm curious because I read that when you were growing up, you didn't have much of an interest in football. You didn't play sports growing up. You were in the band, and what was it about sports or football in general that you just didn't have an interest in? And then what kind of swayed you and really got you hooked?
So I'll tell you this. I used to think those guys were crazy out there, man, on the football field. I mean, getting beat on, the coaches yelling at you. Every time I walked by, I would see them running laps. I'm like, man, I don't want any parts of that. So I was in the band my 7th, 8th, and 9th grade year. The first day of high school, I went in the auditorium, signed up for my classes. I'm coming out the auditorium, and somebody was like, hey. So I turned around, not knowing that was the principal, and he called me over, and he asked me, he said, did you sign up for varsity sports? And I was like, no. So he grabbed me by the arm and took me back in the auditorium, and he signed me up for varsity sports. Well, I had to wait till the last period of the day to find out that varsity sports was football. So, and I was always the type of kid, I never liked to disappoint people. So I would do things, even if I didn't want to do them, I would do things because, like I say, I didn't like to disappoint people. And I went out there the first day, went out the second day, third day, and as they say, the rest was history. His name was Alex Bromere. He has since passed, but every time I would go back to my high school, Miami Springs Senior High, every time I would go back, I would thank him for signing me up, because if he would have never signed me up, I would have never played football. So that's kind of how my career got started. And you always hear a lot of guys say, man, I dreamed about that since I was this high of playing football, but it was kind of the opposite for me. It just kind of happened for me. And like I say, I would always thank Alex Bromere for that opportunity.
Was it the offensive line from the start, from day one for you, or did you play anything else?
No. Guys don't go in willingly wanting to play offensive line. So actually, my first 2 years of high school, I played outside linebacker. So it was only in my senior year when my coach had me playing both ways. He decided to have me play some offensive line along with defense. But yeah, and I still thought, even when the University of Florida offered me a scholarship, I still thought it might be a chance that I play a little defense, but they told me, you're an offensive lineman. And, I think that worked out really, really good for me. And I think playing that position kind of extended my career, being able to play so long.
Yeah, I would say so. Right. I think when people talk about your Hall of Fame candidacy, some of the biggest, or one of the biggest arguments, is that you played against some of the best pass rushers ever. You brought up you were an outside linebacker. You played against the pretty good ones when you got to the league. Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Derek Thomas, Bruce Smith. I mean, the list goes on and on. What were some of your favorite battles from that era? Is there one game or one player that you're like, I ran into him 3 or 4 times and it was a good battle every single time?
So I'll tell you this, the toughest 3 that I ever played against was LT, number 1, because that dude, man, just the week getting ready to play against him would just wreck your whole week, man, because the dude was just that awesome and that dominating. Number 2 was Richard Dent. from the Chicago Bears going up against that great 1985 defense, which I say is the best defense ever. The Bears defense in 85, that's the best defense ever. And then having to play him twice a year. So he was familiar with me. I was familiar with him. And then the late, great Chris Dolman was number 3. Those were the top 3 guys that I think I played against. And of course, him playing in Minnesota, us playing them twice a year. And then like you said, you could throw in Reggie White, you could throw in Derek Thomas, Bruce Smith. I played against so many Hall of Famers. It was like every week you're playing against a Hall of Fame guy. But I do have to say, oh my goodness, I'm drawing the blank on his name. He was in Green Bay. I can't, but he was one of the toughest. Ezra Johnson was his name. And oh my goodness, man, he baptized me my first year in the league. I mean, I tell the people the story that I felt bad for Eric Hipple, who was my quarterback, because either he was getting off Eric Hipple, I was getting off Eric Hipple, or both of us was getting off Eric Hipple that whole game. He really showed me what the NFL was about early in my career. Now he got the best of me that first game, but I was ready for him that second game that we played. But it was a humbling experience to go against that guy. And that's a name, right, that you don't really hear. A lot of people really don't know. But that's why I said the life of a left tackle, you're playing against the best pass rushers on that team each and every week.
Now, I'm curious because from what I read, you were insanely durable. Just one missed start over 164 starts with the Lions. How do you think, or why do you think you were able to do that? A, and B, do you feel like that should contribute to your Hall of Fame candidacy? Because this is a very violent game where, it doesn't, it takes a lot of luck as well as a lot of, preparation. You hear a lot of prehab, guys are doing these days, soft tissue stuff. They're making sure they're taken care of. What did you do to be able to take care of yourself like that? And do you think that should be taken into account when we're having these conversations about where you belong in the echelon of offensive linemen to play in this league?
I really do. I mean, again, like you said, I was lucky and blessed to play 18 years in the NFL, play over 263 games. And, that's the record for offensive tackles. No tackle has played more games than I played in the NFL. I really used to pride myself on my all-season workout. I worked with the great Mackie Shieldstone, and this guy's worked with them all. When you talk about people he's worked with in the NFL, of course, countless boxers, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. He's trained Serena Williams. He was her trainer. He's down in New Orleans. I used to go down there every year during the off season and spend about 4 to 5 weeks down there training with him. I know that helped me tremendously. And I think being, which is underrated, I think being flexible too, because I've had people thrown on my legs a lot of times. And I just think, the flexibility kind of helped me get out of some of those dangerous situations or it being kept to minimal injuries. I only had one surgery the whole time I played, and that was a really elective surgery. I got scoped in 1989. So, a lot of luck going to this. And, like I say, being blessed to play these games, because you see some guys that have come in the game and don't spend a lot of time, but acquire a lot of injuries in the game. The one person I always think about is Mark Slarich, a guy that had 23 surgeries. Can you believe? It's no way I would have let them cut on me. I think on one knee, he might have had like 10 or 11 surgeries just on one knee. So it's just no way I would have went through something like that. But I just think with my longevity, that was the reason why I was able to get to the 2 Super Bowls I played in, because I got to my first Super Bowl with the Giants in my 16th year. And then I was able to follow it up 2 years later and get back to the Super Bowl with Coach Gruden and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in my 18th year. So if I wouldn't have played as long, I wouldn't have got the opportunity to play in 2 Super Bowls. So I'm grateful for the time that I spent in the NFL. And yes, I think that should count when voters start thinking about players that played in this league.
How good did it feel to play in both of those Super Bowls and then go out with the ring at the end?
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, quick story. So when I was with the Giants, my guard next to me was Glenn Parker. And Glenn Parker was on the 4 teams that lost the Super Bowl with the Buffalo
Okay.
Bills. So I remember the night before the game, he came to me and he said, Lomas, if we lose this game, it's going to be the worst feeling you ever felt in your life. And I just kind of brushed them off. Yeah, you lost 4 Super Bowls. That's why you're saying that. OMG. When we lost that game and that final gun went off, I just wanted to lay out in the middle of that field and just slit my wrist and just bleed out. I'm telling you, he was so right. It was the worst feeling, that worst professional feeling that I had ever felt losing the Super Bowl. And like you say, just 2 years later, I was able to get back there with Tampa Bay and win the Super Bowl. And that's the all-time high. I mean, because you finally reached the pinnacle of your sport. And there's something to be said about reaching the pinnacle in anything that you do. And I remember when we won the game, when that whistle, that final gun went off, the first people I thought about was Kevin Glover, Barry Sanders, Jerry Ball, Chris Bill, some of the greats that I played with here in Detroit that never got an opportunity to experience this, and what they would have felt like if they had an opportunity to experience that. So it was just unbelievable, and it was just a great way for me to cap off my career.
Maybe another one of those guys that not a player, but a coach that you spent time with in Detroit that, you didn't get over that hump while you were together in Detroit was Wayne Fontes. We heard Robert Porcher tell some funny stories at the alumni dinner talking about how he said Barry maybe had some different rules than everybody else that Barry ran on. Barry had a special clock. Barry was never late. He was just, everyone else was early. What are your favorite memories being coached by Coach Fontes, and do you have any favorite stories?
Yeah, I mean, coach was, when you say the definition of a player's coach, he was definitely the definition of a player's coach. And another thing Robert forgot to tell you guys was Wayne, it happened during his tenure, but to prove a point, Wayne would have the equipment guys during training camp, they would take off the Lions stickers. So you just had just a silver helmet. The only person that had stickers on this helmet was Barry. And Wayne would say you have to earn the lion on the side of your helmet. But Barry, he never had to earn that. He always had stickers on the side of his helmet. But and the thing about it, nobody cared because we knew how great Barry was.
Yeah.
And he was a great teammate on top of that. So nobody had a problem with that, or the Barry rules, or the plane ain't leaving, because he would always come back. Wayne would always get up. Is Barry on the bus? Okay, we can go now. If Barry wasn't on that bus, we weren't going anywhere. So it was just funny. But coach was like, like I say, he was a player's coach. And the one thing I respected about Coach Fontes was he would never throw you in front of the bus with the media. Every time he went out in front of the media, especially after losses, it would be on him. Everything would be on him. Now, when he got you behind closed doors, he would rip you, and let you know what you did wrong. But we appreciated that he never kind of put the dirty laundry out there for everybody to see, that he always put the responsibility on him. And like I say, especially after losses.
Now, like I said, we do have some questions about present day Lions, and obviously being as close to the team as you are, and having the experience as an offensive lineman, being able to help us talk about some of these things. But before we get to that, I got one last question about your career. I think we would be remiss if we didn't ask you, because you played with Dan Campbell in Campbell's second and third year in the league. what was he like? Fresh pup coming out of Texas A&M, full of piss and vinegar. Can you tell us what he was like early on?
Yeah, so like you say, I was in my 15th year and Dan was in his second year. And I'll say this, you knew it was something different about that dude. It was just something different. I couldn't have told you back then, oh, he's going to be a great coach, but it was something different about him. It was just different how he carried himself. And like I say, it wasn't a starter on the team, more of a blocker on the team, but the dude would get in there and he'll mix it up with you and stuff. So you always knew it was just something different about him and everything, especially at a young age. And, I'm just so proud to see how, and I always tell them that, I'm just so proud to see how he has developed into one of the best coaches in the NFL. And just his pattern that he took to get to the point of where he is now. And then the other thing I love about Dan is the way or the knack that he has to turn around not just an organization or a team, but think about how he's turned around this whole state and this community that we live in. And the example I always give is, think about it. If you listen to J.B. Bickerstaff, if you listen to A.J. Hintz, or you listen to Coach McCullough, every time you're going to hear them guys say grit, or you're going to hear something in the reference to, something that Dan Campbell has said. And even the players, they talk about grit. And so you could tell that not only, like I say, has it infiltrated the Lions organization, but it's also infiltrated this community and this state as a whole, because we're gritty people. Detroiters, we're gritty people. We're hardworking people. We roll up our sleeves and we get it done. And I think Dan is the type of guy that you can follow, and a great example of how we try to live out each and every day here in the great state of Michigan.
Now, I wonder ask you about the Lions offensive line in the year 2025, because a lot of turnover at this unit over the offseason. It's been one of their strengths pretty much since Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes arrived in 2021. A little bit shaky to start the season, and it kind of confirmed maybe some of the fears that we had about this team. All of a sudden, that feels like ancient history. They've gone 3 straight games without allowing a sack. They're in first place of the NFC North. I'm curious, though, to boil it down to the 2 new guys on that line, Tate Ratledge, Christian Mahogany. What kind of growth have you seen from both of those players through their first 4 games?
Yeah, man, it's been tremendous, man. And I think Hank Fraley, he deserves so much credit. It's a name that's not always brought up. You talk about the coordinators and everything, but those positions, you see how important position coaches are. And I think Hank deserves all the credit in the world, because as an offensive line, I always say you have to work like a hand and a glove. Everybody has to be on kind of the same, on the same wavelength for that play. If you get one guy that doesn't do his job, that play isn't going to be successful up front. And for him to take, like you say, basically 3 new guys, because remember, Graham was over at the guard position. So you take 3 new guys in these positions, and that chemistry that you have to build it up as fast as Hank has built this chemistry with those guys. It's remarkable to me, especially like you say, from how we started the first game. Now we have to, again, it's still early in the season, and it's still going to be growing pains. So, it's going to be some growing pains. But to see where they've come from that first game to where we are now, it's remarkable. And I think, man, we have to appreciate Hank while he's here, because the vultures, they're circling, man. As we've seen, man, when you have success, they come pick at your team. They take valuable pieces away from your team, and they tried to get Hank last year. I just think, man, if we have the success we think we're going to have this year, this may be a swan song. So I think he deserves all the roses, and it's just been, like you say, remarkable to see how these guys have come along. And hopefully, the more you play, the more you get better, the more that chemistry develops with those guys up front. And hopefully they'll just keep getting better and better as the season goes along.
You bring up that chemistry, just kind of in practice, what does that look like? And was there a guy or like an example that you played with for a long time where it was like you just knew what he was going to do and you knew, and vice versa?
Great questions. So again, I came in 1985. I was the first round pick, but Kevin Glover, our all pro, all everything center, was the second round pick. Me and Kevin Glover met at the Senior Bowl. We were roommates at the Senior Bowl, and
Oh,
lo
wow.
and behold, in April, the Lions draft me, then they draft him, and we roomed together for 11 years while I was in Detroit. And we had, like I tell people, when you get that chemistry going, then you have this unspoken language where we don't have to say anything to anybody. Glove used to just point. And when he pointed, I knew what that meant. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to say, Lomas, we're changing up things, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. A lot of the things we did on our offensive line back in the day, we pointed. Because again, we had that chemistry to where it was unspoken. You didn't need to say anything. You were on the same mind wave with that guy. And I just think, that's going to get better with those guys up front, where it won't have to be a lot of communication. These guys will kind of be able to kind of feel out what needs to happen. And that only comes over time, playing together and being around each other. That's why I say the offensive linemen, we're the best guys to hang out with, because we all hang out together. Like I say, we all know each other, family. We used to have Thirsty Thursdays where you go out and hang out with the guys and talk to the guys, and you get to know the guys. And once you get to know the guy that's next to you, you're vested in with that guy. So that's the fun part about playing the offensive line, and again, having that chemistry, which I think the Lions are building each and every day.
We got one more for you here, just real quick. When we finish up our interview, we are going to need you to stay on the line just for like 2 minutes to make sure we get everything loaded up.
Yeah.
So I do have a question about Panay, because I think, Richard and I, we can watch the film or, see a play happen and kind of see his greatness. There's no black and white to it. You see him running over somebody or making an insanely athletic play to get to somebody in the open field. But as an offensive lineman, what do you notice that maybe the more casual observers like ourselves wouldn't be able to understand just from not having played the game?
I think the biggest thing for him is just how athletic he is, from an athlete standpoint. And then the other thing, he's been blessed, and I'll tell you, to me, he's the best tackle in Lions history already. I mean, the dude,
Wow.
I have no problem with saying that, because he is phenomenal. I like watching him. He's been given the opportunity too, meaning, we didn't have, and I'll admit it, my 11 years here, I don't know how many offensive coordinators I went through. Think about it. I had the run and shoot offense. We had the silver stretch offense. We had so many different offenses, and I went through so many offensive coordinators while I was here with the Lions. It's hard to get continuity. It's hard when you have a OC there for 2 years, then he's gone, or a year and he's gone. It's hard for them to take advantage of your talent. Well, he's been under Ben Johnson, right? A little bit under Anthony Lynn, a little bit. I think he was here before Dan made that move. But the system has been consistent. He's been under, and they know how to take him and utilize his athleticism. And like I say, he's a great player, and he's tenacious, man. That's what I love about him. He wants to finish each and every block that he's on. So, for the casual guy that's out there, he's been put, and that's all you ask for, right? They talk about that with quarterbacks, but it's just as important with other positions on that field, that you have a consistent voice, You have a consistent system that you're in that you can grow in. And I think that's one of the advantages that Panay had that, say, I didn't have, Kevin Glover didn't have. A lot of guys that came through earlier, they didn't have that because of the up and down and, different things that went on with the Detroit Lions. And if you look at it from Brad Holmes to Dan Campbell all the way down, I think this is the first time that I've seen, in this era and with these guys that everything's connected. Everybody's connected and it runs from the top down, but you're getting the consistent and the same message from the top down. And that's hadn't always been the case around here. So he's in a great position. He's a great player. And like I say, to me, he's the best offensive lineman in Lions history right now.
Well, there you have it. I don't know if we can make much of an argument with that. Lomas Brown, College Football Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, 7-time Pro Bowler, and a Hall of Fame human being as well. I don't think there's a single person who comes to these halls or steps into Ford Field who has not met you and doesn't absolutely love you. You're a wonderful presence in the press box, around the facility. It's been great to get to know you over these last couple of years. And thanks again for joining us today.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Thank you again to Lomas for joining us for today's episode. I had a great conversation with him. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Rich, why don't you say we dig into the Bengals, the stinky, stinky Bengals. I'm being a little bit mean to this Bengals team because they are 2-2. But I think they're a lot worse than their record would suggest. A few weeks ago, people were talking about Joe Burrow and his turf toe injury. I mean, we should probably cover that. Joe Burrow out with a turf toe injury until December at least. When he initially got hurt, everybody was like, oh, Jake Browning has played for this team before, and they went like around 500 or just below 500 with him at quarterback. Maybe they can hold it again together for Joe Burrow to come back. They were 2-0 at the time when he got hurt. Browning actually came in the game that he got hurt and beat a good Jaguars team.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of and that was a lot of optimism around his ability to kind of right the ship until Burrow got back. But in the last 2 weeks, it has been absolutely terrible. Let's get to the stats in just a second, but we're going to read the lines. Actually, no, let's do the stats and then we'll get to the lines.
You go ahead.
Over the last 2 games, the Bengals are averaging 112 passing yards per game, 53 rushing yards per game, for a total of 165 yards of offense per game over their last 2 games. They have been outscored. I lost it. 76-13. To the Vikings and Broncos, 2 teams who I think the Lions are probably better than. Jake Browning has been sacked 7 times. The Bengals are averaging 10.5 first downs per game. That's absolutely brutal. During the Lions-Packers game, before they kind of got the offense going in the second half, I was looking up, when's the last time that the Lions only had 11 first downs? Because that's a really low number.
Yeah.
It had been years. Not even just before Ben Johnson. It would have been, I'm pretty sure, long before Ben Johnson ever showed his face around Allen Park. They had as little as 11 first downs in a single game. Bengals are averaging 10.5 over their last 2 games. They have 5 total turnovers in a Monday night's loss to the Denver Broncos. They had 22 minutes of time of possession. That is absolutely dismal.
Yeah, that's bleak. I think because of how fast this offense has been able to score last year, Lions probably had a few games with more drives than 11. Than
the Bears game. I think they had more drives.
They just had a bajillion drives. Yeah, no, I like Jake Browning. I forget if anybody listened to the show last week. I forget where I had him on the backup quarterback rankings. Maybe I could pull that up here in a second.
Please do.
Yeah, I could try. I liked Jake Browning 2 weeks ago.
I did too.
I'm going to be honest. I thought I was kind of with everyone where I was like,
I agree.
You have this 2-0 thing to lean back on, this record.
And the Bengals never start 2-0.
Right. And the only thing you need is him to play just below 500 ball. Let Joe Burrow come back for the last month or maybe 2 to 3 weeks of the season and just give the Bengals a chance.
Yes.
I feel much less confident about that happening now than I did just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the spread for this game is set at 10.5 points. It feels a little low. The Saints and Bills that had a 13.5, 14.5 at times point spread last week. Saints actually ended up covering. I do not think this is a similar situation this week where the Bengals will end up covering. It's 10.5. Like I said, the over-under is set to 48.5. That's an implied score of 30-19. With all due respect to the Bengals offense, I think the Lions defense has played a lot better than this implied score is giving them credit for.
Yeah, I had Jake Browning as the 7th best backup quarterback in the NFL, ahead of the likes of Tyrod Taylor and Jimmy Garoppolo and Joe Flacco, who started this year as a starter. But
listen, you're not the only one with egg on your face. Jake Browning's first start, I made them my best bet of the week against the Vikings. They lost by 38 points. Sometimes we're stupid. Sometimes we don't know anything about football.
And also, to be fair,
no. To be fair, we're dumb.
No, I wasn't going to defend us. For as much as the Packers game was just one game, it is only 2 games for this Bengals offense. So things could change. However, it has looked really bleak these last 2 games.
But the Bengals aren't a juggernaut. So when they struggle like this, it's not
the offense is when Joe's healthy, but
when one of the best 3 quarterbacks in the world is healthy,
for sure.
Yeah. 4.
Yeah, top 4 for sure.
And the defense wasn't good to begin with. The pass rush will definitely be a little bit of a test. Trey Hendrickson's obviously still there. They got Joseph Asai too. Hendrickson has 19 pressures, just 2 sacks, hasn't had a sack since in the last 2 games. So I think since Burrow got hurt, I think it was honestly a little bit of a shot to the entire team because they're playing a little bit deflated right now. He has no sacks over his last 2 games, just 5 pressures combined. He had more than 5 pressures in each of his first 2 games. So that'll be something to watch for. And then they got a good safety duo, Geno Stone, Jordan Battle. But other than that, 52-7 is my prediction.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if I'd go that far. I know secondary is okay. You mentioned the safeties, Dax Hill. But, yeah, I think 8.5 is the spread. We'll get into our NFC North picks in a second and say what our best bets of the week and all that was. 8.5 when we picked. I think it's maybe risen to 10.5 now.
Yep.
I think I'd probably still pick the Lions to cover.
Easily. I was looking right before we came in here. I was looking with one of our colleagues in there. I wonder what the highest alternate spread you could put on this game. It's 34.5. You can get the Lions at minus 34.5 for plus 1,900. That's 19-1. I think. Do you think there are greater or the odds of them winning by 35 or more are greater than or less than 19-1? If they played this game 19 times, how many times do they win by 35 or more?
That's tough. I don't know.
I'd say it's 4.
I don't know. That's a lot of points. 34.5 is a lot of points.
The Lions put up a lot of points.
What is that for someone that doesn't bet? 1 in 19. If I bet $1, what does that get me?
$19.
19? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you bet 10, you get 190?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
19-1.
No, 34.5 or whatever is a lot of points. I want to.
How many times out of 19?
Once.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
They just beat the Browns by 24.
Yeah, you got to do that plus 15.
Okay, they beat the Jaguars by.
Dude, how many times a year last year did they even have any 34.5 point wins? I know they had they dropped 52 twice on the Titans and
I think both of those games
Jaguars.
They won by 34 or more.
Let's see.
Oh, they beat the Cowboys by 38.
Where's this?
So that's
okay. So they had that one. They had the Jaguars. They beat them by what is that?
46.
46. Thank you.
Math.
This one was 38.
38. So
that's
3.
So you got the Titans, you got the Jaguars, you got the Cowboys. I think that was it from last year.
Okay.
So yeah,
so 3 out of 19. Those are good. What I'm saying is that 19-1 is actually pretty good value.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
I wouldn't do it. Do you want to get into the rest of our picks? We already talked about the Lions. We're both picking the Lions.
The Lions are both of our best bet for this week. The Vikings are minus 3.5 against the Browns in London. I think if the Browns weren't going through a quarterback change, maybe this is a little more interesting. But ultimately, Brian Flores against a rookie starter making his first appearance. If the Lions weren't my best bet of the week, the Vikings are my best bet of the week.
So I actually did change. The Vikings are my best bet of the week this week.
Oh wow! Okay.
And yet not just a rookie starter. Was it 4th rounder, or 3rd rounder, or something?
Third rounder.
Third rounder in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate position that they're putting Dylan Gabriel in to start his very first game against Brian Flores, who is like
in a foreign country.
In a foreign country, yeah. I don't know if there's any worse circumstances at backup quarterback, especially with that offense.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Packers and Bears are both on a bye week, early bye for both
Yep.
of these guys.
Getting the Lions treatment from last year.
Yeah, and then our best bets, we just said them. Lions 10.5 for me, Vikings 3.5 for Richard. It's time to close the show with a blind ranking. What do you got for me today, Rich?
I've got it on my phone here, so let me pull it up.
Eggs and bacon.
I like when I liked what you did last week, where it was whatever, it was Browns quarterbacks or whatever, when it's related to the upcoming team.
Yeah.
So I have 5.
Okay. I have my phone out. I'm not texting in case the people are like, oh, get off your phone. I'm literally doing the blind ranking on my phone, so give it to me.
I have 5 Cincinnati Bengals receivers.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to start you off with number 1, current, Jamar Chase.
Ooh.
It's a tough position I'm putting you in.
It's a tough position to put me in. I'm going to go 2 because I think you're going to have Chad Ochocinco on there, and he's going to be my number 1.
Okay. Second name I got for you.
If you don't have Chad Ochocinco, I'm screwed.
Mohamed Sanu.
Mohamed Sanu. I'm going to go 5 because, with all due respect, Lions legend, Mohamed Sanu.
That's why I put him.
I don't remember him ever playing for the Bengals, which means was it beginning of career?
No, I know he spent a little bit of time there.
He's a Falcon and a Patriot in my head
for sure. I know he spent with the Bengals. Yeah, first 4 years of his career.
4 years.
Yeah.
Was he any good?
Yeah, he was solid. He had in his Bengals career about 1,800 receiving yards over 4 seasons.
So 450 yards a season.
Yeah,
that's a good number 5.
Your third player that I have coming for you here is Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. I'm going to put him at 3, and I actually feel really, really good about putting him just behind Jamar Chase because I do feel that he has had an underrated, he was an underrated receiver pretty much his entire career.
Sure,
I thought.
Sure.
Really good player. Didn't need separation to make the catch. Just one of those guys. You throw it up to him, and he's going to go get it.
Yeah. Fourth player. Interested what you're going to do here.
Okay.
AJ Green.
Ooh, I'm going to put him. If Chad Ochocinco's not coming, I'm screwed. But I'm going to put AJ Green at 4. And I'm going to feel not great about that. I wish he was ahead of Marvin Jones. But I'll take what I can get.
Dang. I feel like I was this close to getting you to do it.
To
putting AJ Green at 1. How close were you?
Not that close. Because you couldn't do the blind ranking without putting Chad.
Your fifth player is Chad Ochocinco.
Chad Ochocinco, number 1, hands down. I was actually I get fixated on players when I watch their YouTube highlights kind of often. I'll be like, oh, this is one of my favorite receivers of all time. And for a while, I was a couple weeks ago, I was really obsessed with Terrell Owens, and lately I've become really obsessed with Chad Ochocinco. And just watching his footwork and his route running ability. Whenever the St. Brown brothers, they have a guy on their podcast, they're like, oh, build your perfect receiver. St. Brown's always feet, Chad Johnson. He just and the watching him get off the line was insane and still is insane to watch that back, and just one of the greatest to ever do it. And I think Jamar Chase is on his way there, but
yeah, so
not there yet.
I think you made the right choice. Your list was Chad Ochocinco 1, Jamar Chase 2, Marvin Jones 3, AJ Green 4, Mohamed Sanu 5. I think probably AJ Green, Marvin Jones is the only thing you would want to switch there, and then maybe Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones is a matter of preference of who you'd prefer. On Ochocinco, so I was watching a video about him the other day. I didn't realize, so I knew the story of he wanted Ochocinco on the back of his jersey, and the league said no, and he was like, well, I'm going to put it there because I want it. And he changes his name. I didn't know that he actually had it on his jersey. He had a custom-made plate and then ripped it off to be funny. And then the league fined him $50,000.
Yeah.
And then out of spite, he was I thought he asked the league, can I do this? And then the league told him no. I didn't realize they actually fined him. And then which makes it more petty. Yeah. That he was all right, fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was peak that era of wide receivers Joe Horn, all those guys. T.O. was peak wide receiver touchdown celebration, at least from what I remember growing up. And that was definitely something I loved from those guys. I remember Ocho Cinco wearing the gold jacket on the sideline. Like he got off the sideline, he put on a gold Hall of Fame jacket. Just classic stuff. The stuff that you don't forget, the stuff that makes you fall in love with the game as a kid, and you look back fondly on when you're a grown up.
Absolutely.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Rate, review, subscribe. You guys know the drill. If you haven't done that already, please do so. It really helps us grow. And also tell a friend if you like this podcast. You're liking what you're hearing. You like the blind rankings. You agree that Chad Ochocinco is better than Jamar Chase. Why don't you tell a friend about it? And we can grow. And the more this podcast grows, the more we can do with it. And I think we're continuing to do more already. So your support has helped us do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place. Talk to you later.